Hi, and welcome everyone here in the room, as well as our online participants. I am Katerina Hertog. I'm an associate professor of AI and society here at the OII. Oh, and by the way, just to say, I hope our online audience can see and hear us well. If you don't, do sort of flag it up, we'll respond immediately. To everyone online and in the room, welcome to exploring the ethical implications of AI and robotics for healthcare, a cross-cultural study. For this first talk this term, we're really delighted to have with us Giulia Togni to discuss how AI and robotic healthcare technologies may shape and be shaped by different understandings of the role and the value of human care. It's a really exciting cross-cultural project, which is quite rare, I think, in this sort of setup. Dr. Giulia Togni has been a postdoctoral research fellow in AI and health at the University of Edinburgh Medical School since 2019. She received her MSc in social anthropology. So by training, she's in medical school, but by training, she's a social anthropologist. She received her MSc from Oxford University and then went on to do a PhD in social anthropology at the UCL. In 2019, graduating in 2019. Dr. Togni's research revolves around exploring the social and ethical implications of current and future advancements in AI and robotics within health and social care sectors. The presentation, so a few housekeeping points. The presentation will run for about 30 to 40 minutes today, followed by discussion at the end. If you're joining us online, please, you have two options. You can either put your questions into a Q&A box, or if you would like to come in on camera and ask your question in quote-unquote person, do just raise your hand and Ellen from the events team will let you in and you will be able to join us on screen. Also, just to highlight, the talk will be captioned, so we were trying to make it as accessible as possible. If any concerns, if anything you notice, do let us know afterwards. Please be aware that the talk is being recorded for everyone again in the room as well as online. And for those in the room, please save your questions until the end of the talk, and Giulia will answer them after the talk. And without further I'll hand over to Giulia, so that's why we're all here today. Thank you very much.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much, Katia, for inviting me. Thanks a lot to Ellen, who's online on Zoom, and to Katia for organizing this event for me. I'm very happy to have so many people in the room and also online. I would like to start this talk by asking you a question that I often ask my collaborators, which are robotics engineers, and they really struggle to answer, perhaps surprisingly. And the question is, what is a robot? A robot, as defined by the International Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineers, is an autonomous machine capable of sensing its environment, making decisions through computations, and executing actions in the real world. This distinguishes robots from software-based artificial intelligence, often referred to as bots, which arguably lack direct influence on physical health. Therefore, the distinction between robots and bots hinges on the embodiment and physical interaction capabilities of robots, which bots appear to lack. However, I would like to ask, why is the influence of a bot on the world considered less direct than that of a robot? And how autonomous and intelligent should a robot be? And what do we even mean by intelligence? It's difficult to, give a meaning to what we mean by intelligence. These are questions that have no easy answer. To tackle these questions over the years, the term human-robot interaction has been increasingly used in research and gained prominence, emphasizing the social engagement between human and machines. My focus for this talk is on human-robot interaction experiments and centers on robots with hardware, so no bots, and focus in particular on social robots that are used for healthcare. I draw on a cross-cultural comparative study. I will tell you more about it later. I did a comparative study between Japan and the UK, and I will address the ethical and social implications arising from these technologies across different cultural contexts. Now, if I say the word robot, what comes to your mind? What is the first image that comes to your mind? If you are from this, geographically from this part of the planet, your views are most likely biased by these pop culture influences. Over the past century, Western pop culture has frequently portrayed social robots in literature, in cinema, and in science fiction as humanoid machines with potential for rebellion. Such portrayals often tend to sensationalize their capabilities, the fear, for example, of robots taking over, as depicted in Blade Runner, in iRobot, and Terminator, and also concerns about super AI, super artificial intelligence, deceiving us, such as in 2001, A Space Odyssey, and Ex Machina, for example. However, these risks are largely speculative and far from becoming real. In reality, despite the media increasingly referring to the existential risk posed by AI, current AI technology does not pose existential threats. However, AI and robotics, if not developed and used responsibly, and in the absence of adequate regulation, do present tangible and very important risks. AI systems already deployed in areas like policy, justice, and job interviews have demonstrated bias against marginalized groups, necessitating urgent regulation. Focusing on hypothetical existential risks is dangerous, as it detracts our attention from the real and pressing issues related to AI and robot regulation. So what is my research about? My ongoing research project is titled Caring Machines. I have a fellowship with the Wellcome Trust. I focus on responsible innovation in AI and robotics for healthcare. And through my research, I explore ways to involve meaningfully end users in co-design practices to ensure these technologies become more accessible, inclusive, and fairer. And when I mention end users, I refer to medical practitioners, care workers, and care recipients. I want them to become part of the innovation practice. This research is fully supported by the Wellcome Trust and has included fieldwork, extensive fieldwork for 14 months between 2022 and 2023. I spent 7 months in Japan, and I'm based in Edinburgh, so most of my research was done in Edinburgh, but I've also been visiting other labs across the UK. I carried out for this research 80 qualitative interviews with robotics engineers and end users, as well as participant observational robotics labs across Japan and across the UK. And the project itself was looking at the ethical consideration and also the societal implication when these technologies would be implemented in the future. And since I'm a social anthropologist, I was very much interested also in the user experiences, so how the embodiment of their relationship with the robot and how their experiences may vary across cultural contexts and also on an individual level, not only levels of acceptability, but really how these technologies may change their practices in the case of medical practitioners, for example, and whether someone, for example, another adult who wants to live independently would feel comfortable with a robot in their house. For my research, I use, although I'm not a philosopher and I'm not an ethicist, so if you ask me questions that are strictly related to this field, I will not be able, to give you my view on that. But for my research, I do use literature on robot ethics. In relation to robot ethics, Mark Kuckelberg offers two main interpretations. Firstly, it can refer to the ethics of how humans should use, interact with, and develop robots. And secondly, it relates to an ethics for robots themselves, often termed as machine ethics, viewing robots as potential ethical subjects. Peter Asaro further distinguishes between three meanings of robot ethics. For Asaro, the term encompasses the ethical systems integrating into robots, the ethics of individuals. So first of all, the ethics of individuals designing and using robots. Second, how people treat robots. And third, the ethical system integrating into robots. These dimensions of robot ethics underscore the complex ethical landscape surrounding the development and deployment of robots in various domains, including healthcare, which is the focus of this talk. Cross-cultural differences in ethics play a significant role in my comparative research study between the UK and Japan. It's essential to understand that ethical values vary not only between cultures, but also within societies. Disagreements arise, for example, regarding what constitutes good quality care, its components, and the desired future of care as AI and robotics become increasingly integrated into healthcare practices. Governments in technologically advanced nations, such as the UK and Japan, are investing heavily in AI and robotic healthcare technologies due to the need for precision, shortages of healthcare personnel, and an aging population. These investments will bring about substantial transformations in care delivery and also the quality of life of both care workers and care recipients. In contrast to the UK, where attitudes toward AI and healthcare robotics tend to be slightly negative, Japan often serves as an example of positive attitudes towards robots. Common pop culture icons are Doraemon on the right and Astro Boy, which have shaped Japanese attitudes, portraying robots as loyal and friendly companions. Moreover, Japanese roboticists have intentionally designed robots to look non-threatening, cute, and approachable. This is exemplified, for example, by Paro, a robot baby seal for older adults with Alzheimer's and dementia, by Aibo, a robot dog for companionship, and by Pepper, a humanoid robot for entertainment and for encouraging physical activity among older adults. In Japan, especially over the past 2 decades, emotional attachment to machines has become a phenomenon, leading some individuals to even organize unofficial wedding ceremonies to marry their favorite fiction characters, dolls, or robots. Some advocates argue for granting rights to these objects. The debate about whether inanimate objects like robots should be given rights, is not unique to Japan. However, it seems more prominent there than elsewhere. Why? It's difficult to answer this question, but this may in part be due to social issues specific to the Japanese context, like, for example, the decline of rural communities, widespread social isolation, especially in large cities like Tokyo, and the disintegration of intergenerational support networks across the country. In Japan, social robots are often portrayed by the authorities as a solution to the shortage of care workers amid a rapidly aging population, with estimates suggesting that citizens aged 65 and above will make 40% of the population by 2050. While other countries face similar challenges, Japan's hype narratives uniquely position AI and robots as saviors, reflecting the government's technological solutionism, which assumes that technology can solve these major social issues. This stance, however, overlooks alternative solutions, like, for example, raising care worker salaries and increasing immigrant labor, solutions that have historically been resisted by the conservative Japanese government. The prevailing narratives in Japan revolve around the potential of AI, Internet of Things, and care robots as solutions to support independent living for older adults. These narratives were particularly driven by former Prime Minister Abe Shinzo's vision of transforming Japan into a robot society, Roboto Shakai, starting from 2015, which was deemed by Abe as year one for robotizing Japanese society. I will now show you a short video which captures the vision that former Prime Minister Abe Shinzo's government had in relation to transforming Japan into a robot society and, or as they name it, Society 5.0. And Ellen will share the link to the video, please, to people who are joining online. The video is only 90 seconds long. So I encourage those who are attending online to turn off your audio and watch the video on your own. And then when you're done, join us back, because I don't think you will have good quality audio otherwise. Thank you.
ここはちょっと未来の日本のとある町。IoT や AI 技術によって叶えられるソサエティ 5.0 の社会です。朝ごはん何にしようか。いいね。そろそろお出かけの時間です。ポロテパンとミックスサンド、いつものお店でお願い。注文しておきます。
昨日から血圧が高いみたいですが。
あら、そういってらっしゃい。
はい、これ。
ありがとう。
ああ、お前の乗るとこ。
未来が楽しみでしょ。
なんか言った？
なんでもない。
What followed to Society 5.0 were similar initiatives, although increasingly more and more ambitious, including most recently the Moonshot Research and Development Program, which was funded in 2020 by the Cabinet Office with a 100 billion yen, which is equivalent to 740 million US dollar investment. The Moonshot aims to address economic and societal challenges, including the development of reliable AI-empowered robots, called AI robots, to support aging populations by 2050. This program, the Moonshot, can you see? Okay. Encompasses extremely ambitious goals, such as regenerating lost limbs, enabling human hibernation for interplanetary travel, controlling the weather, and achieving brain-to-brain communication or telepathy. Now, a discussion of the Moonshot R&D goals would require a talk on its own, because there is so much to discuss about this. For the purpose of this talk, I'm just focusing on the ethics of healthcare robotics. But still, I wanted to show you this because Japan's unique cultural influences and government-driven technological solutionism set the stage for complex ethical discussions regarding care robots and their societal implications. Okay, this is not working. Let's see. Okay. So, ethical issues with care robots. My interdisciplinary and comparative research aims to foster dialogue among roboticists and users, as I said, medical practitioners, care workers, and care recipients, and policymakers to help guide and inform responsible innovation. I explore critical questions such as how AI and robotic healthcare technologies influence and are influenced by diverse perceptions of human care's role and value. So what does caring mean for each other, and also what we want from it? Preserving human dignity in AI and robot-assisted care and involving end users in co-designing these technologies are central concerns in responsible innovation. I use the concept of robot ethics as a facet of applied ethics and philosophy of technology because robot ethics holds that robots serve as mirrors, reflecting our values and choices in technology and development. The kind of robots we create, in other words, can tell a lot about who we are, what we value, and what we want in the future. In the case of care robots, complex ethical questions arise, including concerns about user privacy under continuous surveillance, safety in care settings, and the ethical implications for the involvement of vulnerable users, such as children and older adults with cognitive impairments. Questions about deception, dignity, and the potential for robots to perpetuate bias also emerge, along with considerations regarding environmental impact of these technologies and liability in the event of malfunctions, who can be held responsible. Social robots are not yet truly intelligent or caring, and we do not know if they will ever be. Nowadays, researchers in different countries are working on enhancing robot autonomy and interactivity to provide more meaningful social interactions that convey a sense of care to users. Currently, however, many experiments with care robots involve remote human control in so-called Wizard of Oz experiments fashion. These are akin to performances rather than genuine autonomous interactions, and such performances are arguably often not much different than the automata performances that were so popular in the 1800s. And here you can see some examples of this. Going back to the ethical issues with care robots, privacy risks and the potential loss of human contact are also pressing concerns in the deployment of social robots. The data gathered by personal robots, often without full disclosure, may contribute to surveillance capitalism, which is a form of social and economic oppression based on data surveillance and manipulation by tech companies. Personal robots equipped with cameras and with microphones can record conversations and videos, raising privacy and human rights issues, which urgently require regulatory attention. Furthermore, the use of robot assistants for vulnerable subjects, such as children and older adults with physical and cognitive impairments, has sparked debates about the appropriateness of such robots in care roles. Critics like Linda and Robert Sparrow, for example, argue that companion robots cannot meet users' social and emotional needs and may lead to a potential loss of genuine human contact. Simulated care from robots may deceive users into thinking they are cared for, challenging notions of human dignity and what constitutes genuine care. As healthcare AI and robotics are becoming more prominent, addressing these challenges requires a more inclusive dialogue, user-centric design, and a robust regulation to foster responsible innovation and uphold human values and dignity. Moreover, concerns regarding the use of robots as caregivers for children, for example, raise several ethical questions. Amanda and Noel Sharkey highlight privacy and security issues. This includes, for example, deciding under what circumstances a robot should physically intervene and restrain a child. While this may be beneficial when a child is in real danger, what if they're simply trying to take a cookie their parents have forbidden? Should the robot be allowed to physically restrain the child? Robots as caregivers for children also raise questions about how prolonged interaction with machines might impact a child's mental and social development. Sherry Tarko's research reveals that children interact differently with personal robots compared to dolls. They see in dolls objects, whereas they treat robots as if they face another person. This as-if relationship may not foster genuine mutuality, care, or empathy, as robots can only simulate understanding and caring while lacking genuine emotional depth. These are some examples of care robots in Japan. A Japanese robotic engineer I collaborated with offered a different perspective of ethical issues of care robots. They stated that robots like Paro, so the baby seal, which resembles this cute animal, are used for comforting older adults with dementia and are meant to be cared for by users, not the other way around. In other words, these are not caring machines, but rather machines that need to be cared for. My collaborator stated that older adults interacting with robots like Paro may feel responsible for caring for the robot, and this can have positive outcomes for them, as they, I quote my collaborator, may find new purpose in caring for the robot. In other words, they may feel needed. Qualitative studies carried out at care homes employing Paro, however, have shown that older adults with dementia can develop emotional attachment to robots like this, sometimes to the extent of physically resisting separation from the robot. This raises ethical questions about empowerment, deception, and emotional attachment's impact, especially when dealing with vulnerable subjects. Robots' design and behavior are influenced by the values and culture of the society in which they are developed. The kind of responses I collected in Japan were different from the kind of responses I collected in the UK. Different values and cultures translate into different approaches to technologies for healthcare and also into different design practices. This can sometimes lead to tensions when a robot developed in one country is deployed in another country in a different cultural context. There may still be ways to adapt the robot to different cultural contexts. I've been told by my collaborators, for example, through reprogramming the robot, reprogramming the software in the robot, and modifying its appearance. But this can be done to some extent. Now, Japanese robots are rather exceptional in this regard because with their non-threatening, friendly, and cute kawaii design, they are particularly popular in human-robot interaction experiments, not only in Japan, but also in other countries. An example of a particularly adaptable social robot is Pepper, here, which was developed by Japanese SoftBank Robotics, which originally was the French Aldebaran Robotics. I found Pepper deployed not only at robotics labs in Japan and the UK, but also other labs I visited in Italy, in France, and in South Korea. According to Aldebaran website, Pepper is designed to read the human emotions and engage in real conversations, making it suitable for a wide range of applications in human-robot interaction experiments. It is claimed that its friendly and non-threatening appearance helps users feel comfortable. Unlike some other humanoid robots, that may appear intimidating because maybe they're bigger, taller, or have red eyes, and so on, and may result in, as my collaborators put it, being creepy. The robotics engineers I interviewed, however, have also emphasized Pepper's limitations. Despite its friendly appearance, Pepper has several technical issues, including limited mobility. As you can see, this is, can like move, but quite not as efficiently as other robots. And also it has speech recognition difficulties, especially in noisy environments. Consequently, trials of Pepper in care homes in Japan and abroad have seen limited success because they're very noisy environment. My collaborators also noted the contrasting expectations towards pet robots like Paro and humanoid robots like Pepper. My collaborators explained to me that the choice of a baby seal as the model for Paro was smart, as few of us have experience of handling a baby seal, so we have no idea of how a baby seal would interact with us and react to human touch. If they had chosen a pet-looking robot like a dog or a cat, we would have had higher expectations. We have an idea of how they would react, isn't it? Of course, if you're a marine biologist or you work at an aquarium, you know how baby seal would interact with you, but the average person wouldn't. My collaborators also pointed to this lack of expectations to explain the success of Paro, and conversely explained to me that interactions with a human-like robot, such as Pepper, come with higher expectations, plus with the promise of the website that it will have real conversations with you. It has a human-like appearance, and it promised to recognize our emotion and engage in a meaningful conversation. As a result, people often anticipate having this conversation with Pepper and end up being very disappointed when these expectations are not met. Now, particularly high expectations arise when robots are deployed for care. How can these expectations be met? Robot design often assumes a universal user standard, yet individuals vary in needs, bodies, genders, and personal histories. We are all different, and we all have different needs. While some researchers propose using AI to adapt robot intelligence to individual users and cultures, so to have tailored robot for each one of us, important challenges still remain. Can machines truly understand and respect differences in gender and culture? And even if they could simulate such respect, is it ethically sufficient? Research indicates that AI and robots already exhibit sexism and racism. This is seen, for example, in sex robots perpetuating gender stereotypes and crime algorithms showing racial bias. In addition to this, care robots equipped with cameras and microphones raise important privacy concerns and surveillance issues, as they're supposed to be in our homes. My collaborators in the UK often acknowledge privacy concerns about data collection and usage, whereas in Japan, interestingly, personal robots were viewed as tools for watching and protecting, mimamoru in Japanese. Japanese engineers emphasized the technology role in safeguarding older individuals living alone. They justify the surveillance aspect of the technology by reinforcing the idea that it is family members who are looking at their parents and grandparents through the robot. So a robot is a vehicle, is a medium. This narrative, however, only applies to independent older adults without physical or cognitive impairments, whereas there are more contentious cases of robots being used in mental health, dementia care, and therapy for children with autism, for example, which raise important concerns about dignity, human contact, and justice in care practices. In particular, the potential replacement of human care with robots raises questions of justice, equality, and accessibility. In the future, will only the wealthy be able to afford human care, leaving the rest of us with robots? And is this really what we want? Somehow it went back, sorry. Okay. So to conclude, while technological solutions have the potential to help address demographic challenges, they're not the sole nor ideal approaches to this. Ethical discussions depend on the roles and tasks assigned to robots. These technologies can be used responsibly if they are developed collaboratively with end users, and if ethical and social concerns are addressed in the process. This can potentially lead to positive transformations in health and social care practices. To end on a positive note, I would like to highlight how applications such as algorithms used for diagnostic or robot-assisted surgery are already offering significant benefits in medicine. Care robots, when designed and developed responsibly, also have the potential to enhance care practices by aligning with the real needs of care recipients and care workers. Responsible research and innovation entail stakeholder involvement and early ethical considerations in the development process. Concepts like value-sensitive design emphasize the importance of considering human values throughout design. Some robotics researchers have been advocating including ethics in care robot design to uphold the values and dignity of users. This is a transformation which is much needed. In a world where technology is already shaping our lives, societies, and the environment, critical thinking about the development and use of AI robotics for healthcare is essential. Ethical considerations regarding these technologies compel us to reflect now on these important issues in order to influence policy and create together the kind of care we want in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for this excellent talk. I could chair and we could take turns. So I don't see any questions in the chat at the moment. We'll start in the room, but I can keep an eye on the chat so you don't have to, and you can keep an eye on the room. So, questions, comments?
Hi.
I'm also from Edinburgh. Yeah, I'm a visiting PhD student at the Institute for the Study of Science and Technology and Innovation.
Okay.
Yes, and thank you for fantastic talk. Yeah, and I'm wondering, it sounds like in this case that the main characters or that AI mainly serves human. But I guess that in the development of this type of process, like this type of AI and this type of robots, there must be some human involved. Yes. And how do human and AI collaborate in this process?
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Well, we should definitely connect if you're in Edinburgh. We should meet again here. Yes, it is a very important and key question. Katja, would you like to
I will just
and one of the outcome I hope to get from my research, and I'm increasingly trying to do that with my collaborators, is to create opportunities for meaningful user involvement. So I'm in the process of organizing a few workshops which have co-design activities, for example. One will happen at the National Robotorium next week. If you're in Edinburgh, you should attend with the collaborators from Watt University, and the National Robotorium is this facility, for those who may not be aware of it, that opened last year in September and is in Edinburgh and sees the collaboration between academia and the industry. There are around 50 robotics engineers fully employed there, plus startups, plus researchers from Watt University, and they have spaces where they invite end users to involve them in co-designing these technologies. And the end users I'm referring to, for example, include Age Scotland, Health and Stroke, so some charities, some care homes, medical practitioners, psychologists, some robotics engineers from other universities as well. And we invite them all together to discuss about what are the real needs of end users and how roboticists can meet those needs. And this kind of dialogue doesn't really happen that often. I was quite struck while carrying out fieldwork for 14 months by the lack of, I wouldn't say complete lack, but quite remarkable lack of user involvement. And I've been discussing together with my collaborators how we can change these things. So we are in the process of creating more opportunities, but at the same time, I've been told, and unfortunately, this is one of the issues we have in academia, there is not as much support for public engagement and not as much value given, for example, to outreach activities compared to peer-reviewed journal articles.
Thank you.
So yes, one of the things that should change, since I have this power and I can say these things, funders should really incentivize researchers to do more outreach and public engagement activities, and it should be valued on CVs. You know, people really try to make a difference for real impact, so that we can involve end users and really make sure that is not done. I don't want to sound doom too late, but it needs to be done now, because otherwise the kind of technologies that will be used will not really respond to the needs, you know, of care workers and people who have different bodies again and different needs. So in the process, if you want to come next week, please sign up for the mashup. Yeah, thank you.
We have, I'll pick up a question online and then continue. We have one question online, which I think is quite interesting, by Adlan. I'm doing a PhD in HRI in healthcare. My question is, in comparison to Japan, what is the situation of HRI in the UK? So human robot interaction, in terms of using robots in hospitals, care homes, for example. Like,
Yes, it's a very good question. So thank you, Adlan, for your question. When I was in Japan, the kind of activities, human-robot interaction activities I was seeing were mainly done in assisted living facilities there and less often in care homes. Also due to the pandemic, I was told, because, you know, it was, although in the UK regulation changed in 2022, in early 2022, we stopped wearing masks, or was it 2021? I don't know, it's very blurred in my mind. Anyway, when I was in Japan for 7 months, I was wearing mask and I had to keep a distance from you know, everyone, like we used to do here in the UK. So when I was there, it was quite strict in terms of safety and regulation. We couldn't do much human-robot interaction experiments, also due to this reason. That said, there were trials of care robots done in care homes. Some of my collaborators sent the robots to the care homes, and then they were collecting data. When I asked them why you didn't follow the robot, robotics engineers replied to me, well, we don't have experiences caring, so it doesn't make sense for us to go to the care homes, by which I was quite struck, because then, so you're just collecting surveys, you're not really observing the interaction. If something goes wrong, like, is the responsibility of the care worker who's already overwhelmed and has so many things to do, need to look after the robot. So arguably, these technologies are creating more work than actually saving, you know, time. And this was the situation in Japan. In the UK, I came across narratives of resistance towards robots. So the trials that I'm doing with my collaborators in assisted living facilities within the robotics lab, which look pretty much like a normal apartment with the IKEA furniture everywhere. These are apartments that have sensors everywhere. They look like smart homes. So, for example, you have Amazon Alexa on one side, and you have Pepper on another side with a touch screen to interact with you. On the carpet, there are sensors. If you call, a robot with a camera will come to you and will call, you know, emergency number. There are sensors on the bed as well that detect whether the user is sleeping there, for example. Again, due to the pandemic, there couldn't be longitudinal studies, but now, because everything reopened, we are planning to get users to spend a few days at these assisted living facilities to see how they would live in a smart home of the future and whether they like it or not. I have to say, as a social anthropologist, I am very wary about bias here. And when you recruit participants and you recruit them through mailing lists, they're obviously already interested in the robots because they want to be involved and they have this, you know, very positive attitude. Of course, they will be happy to use the technology. I would find it more interesting to have a wider spectrum of participants, you know, people who maybe be reluctant to use these technologies, and maybe their views may change. I'm not totally negative toward the technology. I think there is a lot of potential, you know, to benefit society and healthcare if it is done responsibly. So to answer your question, there are HRI experiments being done here and there, but more needs to be done. I was very glad I had the opportunity to see some experiments also in Italy and in South Korea this year, and I found it very interesting. There is no time to go into that because
we have
there are other questions in the room,
but
I think more needs to be done, and I hope I answered this question. Yes.
Take a couple of questions in the audience, and we'll come back as another one.
Yeah, we'll try to be faster in my replies.
Yeah. And then,
Sure, thank you. My name is Faisal. I'm part of, I'm a pharmacist by training. I'm part of the MBA program. So
Just speak up.
so you can hear me. So the question I had was more along the lines of your research. Have you spent time engaging with the healthcare fraternity, so basically the medical fraternity, to understand more where their position is in terms of the ethics from in incorporating AI in decision making from a healthcare perspective? Where do they sit in terms of these decisions, and have they got a position and how they're looking at progressing those into basically providing care going forward, like hospital assisted, assisted surgeries, and where that kind of decision making lies? Does the surgeon on the table actually have to take the advice? And if he doesn't, what happens? If he doesn't, what happens? Where is this kind of debate at the moment, and is there any guidance that you've had in your research and your experience? I'd like to hear about that.
Thank you so much. So for my previous project, I was focusing on robot-assisted surgery and algorithms used for diagnostic. For example, if you have a melanoma and use algorithms to detect which has been fed thousands and thousands of images. It would be horrible. It was like ChatGPT. So when I was interviewing practitioners in this field, pathologists and surgeons, they were pretty happy about the technology. They were really stressing about the benefits. For example, if you work many hours as a pathologist and you have to go through all these images, it is very helpful to have a backup from technology, from AI, giving you, sometimes there are false positive, but sometimes the human as well can make a mistake. So the human together with AI would actually improve efficiency in digital pathology. In robot-assisted surgery, I had very interesting responses. So I interviewed a few surgeons that were using the Da Vinci robot, which is the most advanced robot for precision surgery, microsurgery. And they were saying that they found it extremely helpful, not to do the procedure, but to cope with chronic back pain. Because when you do a laparoscopy, for example, you have to spend 7-8 hours in a very awkward position, and it's not really ideal and also not sustainable over many years. Care workers as well have chronic back pain, and some of the argument towards using care robots is that they may help them leave the body, but then there is a lot of ethical issues with that as well. But those surgeons that were using the Da Vinci robot were very happy, but they were telling me, sometimes my patients, they feel like it is more reliable and it's safer if I use a robot during the procedure. So for example, the surgeon told me he was going to do the procedure on an older adult, and her son told her mom, "This is fantastic. You're going to have the Da Vinci robot involved in your surgery. You should be feeling very, lucky and reassured. It's going to be the best, kind of procedure you can undergo. It's just going to be extremely safe and perfect for you." And the surgeon didn't make a comment, but he told me, I felt like I was almost deceiving them, because in fact, nothing really changes in the procedure. For me, it's good because I won't have back pain. But in fact, at the end of the day, it's really the skills of the surgeon that matters. And also the people who are undergoing procedure, maybe they have underlying conditions. So you never know the outcome of surgery until, it's unpredictable. And I found it very interesting, because they were saying, I just go along with them, and if they feel more reassured, that's fine. They will be happier maybe during the procedure, and that's it. But they were really stressing the benefits more for themselves than for the patients. And one of the underlying issues with robotic surgery is that over time, the skills of the surgeon may get affected, because there is less contact with the tissue, with the human tissue. So it's one of the issues that were stressed, that although it may become increasingly used in the future, it's still important to train surgeons to actually do the procedure with the human body in front of them. So again, there are very positive, outcomes, but at the same time, a balance is needed. There is still a need to be there, is providing care and healthcare together with the robot, together with AI, not technology on its own. So that was something that was I found out during my research and I thought was interesting. Thank you.
Another question, and then I'll take after this one, I'll take some from
Yes.
online. So
So my name's Charlotte. I'm a raw lady psychiatrist,
Mhm.
and one of the what I wanted to ask you about was in mental health, we're looking at AI and robotics in terms of addressing shortages of practitioners and actually widening access to treatment. So it's very interesting your comment of like, it's sort of like, is that going to be kind of the poor person's care that they're going to be given
Yes.
versus, if you can afford it, you can get the face-to-face. But I wondered whether there was a perception of a difference between treatment and technology increasing access to treatment and care. Does that make sense? So
Yes.
whether certainly from a both a sort of delivery and a reception point of view, whether you discovered that people have different ethical considerations or understanding in those two realms.
Yes, absolutely, is a very crucial issue to discuss. So when I was interviewing for this previous project, surgeons and digital pathologists, I was also interviewing a few startups, CEOs who were working on AI for mental health. And of course, they have interest to say that the technology works. And they were stressing this point, it's not like AI can prescribe you medicines. It's not like it's really dangerous. But with a shortage of care workers, if you can chat with a bot online, maybe you will feel better. Maybe you will feel cared for. But then this issue with deception and whether we want a simulation of being cared for, whether this is enough, whether it is ethical acceptable, whether this is the future we're going for is another question. So I don't have an answer to this, but it's an undergoing, conversation, especially with generative AI and ChatGPT, with which you can have this meaningful conversation if you want sometime. It's becoming more and more of a topic because these mental health apps are lots. There are so many. And sometimes you chat with a bot and you're not sure it's actually a bot or a human person because it's very realistic, the kind of conversation you're having. As a psychiatrist, I think your view on this would be...
It's the equitable access thing. I think, it is simulated care better than no care, because sometimes that is increasingly the choice that people have to make.
And then affordability, accessibility. So again, in the future, if only the wealthy will afford human care, that's really dystopian future. Hopefully that will not happen. But when we call a number, we're often put on hold with a bot, or we have to chat with a bot, and to solve minor issues, we have to do that now. So we need to make sure that technology should always enhance human care, should not replace it. And especially mental health is such a delicate endeavor.
Time to a few questions from online. So this is anonymous, so I can't tell the name, but thank you for your presentation. I was just curious as to how care robots are designed for dementia patients. Are they primarily there to provide patients with emotional support? This sort of tails nicely with the sort of mental health discussion we're having.
Yes, it is. So I was referring to, there you go, to Paro during my presentation, because this robot has been particularly successfully deployed to a number of care facilities, not only in Japan, but abroad in Scandinavia, Denmark, Sweden. Many care facilities are using this robot. And as I mentioned, as I learned from my collaborators in Japan, this is not a caring machine. This is a machine that requires you to care for it. So my collaborators were telling me, it makes, in terms of comfort, it's definitely comforting, but it also makes the user feel needed, as if they were caring, for a real pet. But then again, there are ethical issues, because then there is emotional attachment. And in the case of people who have cognitive impairments such as Alzheimer's or dementia, it may be difficult. There is a delicate line between reality and, dream or something that is not real. And are they capable of differentiating between a robot, an inanimate object, and a real pet? So where do you draw the line if you're not sure that vulnerable subjects do not understand what they're handling? So it's a very delicate topic.
I'll pick one more, and then if there are more in the room, we could take a few more questions. Hi, I'm a PhD student exploring biodata ethics by design at UAL. I'm curious about how you conduct the co-design in the cross-cultural research. How did you conduct it? What kind of activities are included? Oh no, it's jumping. In the co-design, did you find any challenges in the communication?
Yes, very important question. So one of the things I'm very interested in my research is making science communication more accessible, dropping the jargon and trying to involve the users, so lay public more. When you want experts and non-experts, I'm using these labels, although it's controversial, to communicate between each other. You have a clash of communication, and you need to make a real effort to make sure that there is a respect from both parties, so that the expert will respect the views of the non-experts, and the non-expert will also listen to the expert. And during these co-design workshops, which so far have been going well, we haven't really had a huge clash of conversations. Medical practitioners and caregivers, care workers, and people working at charities and other public entities that provide care, they give their feedback. After seeing the robot, they have an experiment. For example, one of the experiments was with Pepper, so it's the humanoid robot I showed earlier, and Pepper was doing yoga and was doing, different poses, move your hands like this. With a camera, I would recognize if you were moving correctly the limbs and give you feedback. After testing the technology, they would answer a survey and also ask questions to the roboticist all in the same day. So it's quite intense. It's like 8 hours non-stop. And then next week is going to be for a whole week. And then we collect the data, and we try to make sure that the responses we collected will be taken into account in future design of these technologies. So today I showed you mainly robots that were made in Japan, but in fact, many of the labs I've been based, there are robots that are not available yet in the market and are taking into account these differences, these opinions. Some of the robots I couldn't show you today because, I had to focus on something specific. I'm working with people who are developing, for example, exoskeletons and robotic limbs for people who have physical disabilities or need rehabilitation. They had injury, or they are athletes, and they have chronic pain. And all those physically supportive robots are being co-designed, having in mind that we have different bodies. So, for example, one of my collaborators realized that this exoskeleton was working perfectly on him, but then it wouldn't work on me or on the only other girl in the lab. There is also a gender issue in STEM. I know everyone is aware here of this. And your height, your weight, your gender, many things are variables that need to be taken into account. So one of the things that we do during this co-design workshop is to think about tailored technologies in the future, which may adapt more easily to the bodies and the needs of the person. And also bearing in mind, it's not just the care recipients, it's also care workers, because we need to make sure we support care workers and we know what they need. So for example, sending a robot to a care home and expecting the staff to deal with the robot if it doesn't work, especially in a noisy environment, Pepper cannot really communicate, and then he gets stuck in the corner, and then you expect them to keep using it for months. Of course, after a few days, they just close it in the room. And then they tell you, I stopped using it because it was a burden, he wasn't helping, for example. Okay.
I think we have 3 minutes left, so maybe other questions in the room. Yes.
Hi. I really love your research, and I'm a master student at OI. So I'm curious about how the cultural factors promote or hinder the adoptions of the robots in the at-home or animal domestication areas. Like, in China, I know all the elderly in China are very sensitive or very sensitive about the robots because they think the robot sometimes replace the responsibilities of their children. So maybe in our culture it seems like very, very bad, because in Chinese we really respect our mother or father. So if you use the robot at home, so the neighborhood will think, oh, you must be a very bad guy, very bad children. So I think to the East Asia, I think it's kind of like be similar at some points. So how the culture factors impact in that kind of process in Japan when you can,
Yes, that's a great question. So I mentioned in Japanese they use this word mimamoru, which means I look at you and I protect you. So they're not saying that the machine is there along with you. It's your children and grandchildren who are busy at work that look at you through the machine. So indeed, this narrative about not neglecting the elderly is very important. And this is perhaps more pronounced in collective societies, which, for example, East Asia is an example, whereas here in Western Europe, where towards more, individualistic societies, perhaps there is more openness on deploying, but not necessarily an Android robot, maybe sensors and smart home devices in order to have this independent living prolonged. But then also in Japan, for example, when I was interviewing the users, so people who have physical disabilities and older adults, they were telling me, I don't want to become a burden. Mei wako ni naranai. And this device could help them move with their lives without having to rely on their children and grandchildren. And for them, it was very important not to have to impose, and to use these devices for their own purpose. So for example, one of the groups I was interviewing, it's called the Robot Avatar Cafe, which is in Honbashi, opened last year. I'm very enthusiastic about this because I absolutely fell in love with the experiment. So there is a cafe in Tokyo where robots serve you, but they are remotely teleoperated by people who have physical disabilities and they cannot leave their houses. And I could interview a few of them. And also I was going regularly to this cafe just as a customer because I love the experience. So these robots you are interacting with are called Orihime Beta. It's a very cute, small, again, non-threatening, friendly-looking robot. And you sit on the table for half an hour, you interact with one of the pilots. So one person will tell you about the menu, but also they will tell you about their hobbies. And so I interviewed them and I asked them, and this applies to the future of work. I asked them, how do you feel about using the robot? And they said, oh, my lives have been completely transformed. Now I have a baito, I have a part-time job. I became financially independent. And then they said, I find purpose and I feel that society needs me. And also I enjoy so much having these conversations, and not just with Japanese, but so many foreigners are coming to this cafe. And then I'm learning English now. So from them, I heard all this very positive feedback. And I thought, okay, this is the kind of experiments that show you how, robotics and can really improve the quality of life of someone in a way by allowing them to have a choice, what they want to do, how they want to do it, how they want to interact more. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we've run out to the time. I tend to be quite strict about time because of care responsibilities. I noticed there was more interest. Maybe you could come up. Those who are in the room, perhaps you could come up and still, hopefully Giulia can still stay with us for a bit. And there was one question I couldn't pick up online in a similar way. Perhaps people could reach out to you.
Yes,
there's an email address available on your screen.
Yes.
And one of the people who answered Adlan, one of the early questions, was telling you he will be at the mashup. So
okay,
just
good.
to let
I'll see you at the mashup.
Thank you very much again. And it was really interesting.
Likewise, I really enjoyed the conversation we had. Thank you.